My name's Brian Eliason. I'm in recovery for the last 16 years. Drugs and alcohol is in my story. I'm a counselor, primary counselor here at Glen Bay Hospital. I also have two beautiful daughters that I adore. Some great news. I just was asked for my youngest daughter's hand in marriage yesterday by her boyfriend.
How
And
cool.
she got engaged yesterday, so I'm really excited, pumped up, just happy and proud. Today.
Absolutely. That's
Yeah.
very cool. And you get to be a part of your kid's life
Absolutely.
and be there. So, well, thanks for taking some time and joining us. Could you start off by sharing a bit about your childhood?
My childhood, I'm the ninth child out of 10 kids. So I believe today I've found out that there's no such thing as a functional family. So it was dysfunctional. I didn't know that at times. But overall, I believe my mom did the best she could. Mm-hmm. You know, I lost my father when I was young, when I was 3 years old. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So my sisters pretty much raised me, and I get a lot of great qualities from them ladies today. So I can cook, clean, take care of myself.
That's very cool.
Thanks to my sisters.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. So when did you first start experimenting with alcohol or drugs?
The first experiment for me for the high was 11 years old. I was huffing gas.
Okay.
And then 13-year-old, when I first smoked pot. This was a series of events to smoke pot. Shortly after there, I had my first drink.
So as your disease progressed, could you share a story or two that really paints, what your life was like in active addiction?
I would take it really neat, not neat thing today that I can look back at is I was a blackout drunk.
Okay.
I drank from the first time. I drank for the effect of it, and I'd black out. But there's a lot of my drinking that I don't remember, and of course I was told stories and told things, but there's still some big gaps. I just said it was the end where it drove me where I was homeless, and the mental state that where I wanted to take my life. I didn't want to live anymore. So the last 6 months was just really hell. I mean, it was just horrible.
Pretty dark place.
Very dark.
So what happened that you decided, you know what, I don't want to live this way anymore?
Well, I'll take you right to it. It was the last 6 months. There was thoughts of taking my own life. I tried twice. It was May 12th of 2006. I took 60 Ativans.
Oh my.
And I was in a self-induced blackout coma for 2 days. Some crazy stuff happened in those 2 days. But I came out of that. And I still wanted to take my life. I was having thoughts of driving off the bluff in my car and just scattered around. It was Mother's Day that day. And for some reason, I was separated with my wife at the time for the last 6-7 months. And I picked up the phone and asked for help. And that's what changed. I just didn't know. It was either, today I know that if they didn't pick up that phone, it would have been over for me.
Yeah.
And I chose life, and I don't know why. I really don't know why. It doesn't really matter today.
Right.
I'm just glad I did.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So when you reached out for help, what happened? Walk us through that process.
I asked my wife, I said, can you please call Doc? And, it was my doctor for years, and she did. She came and picked me up, and we went to the psych ward. They locked me up for 3 days, and it was a lockdown unit. I was at that point, not realizing then, but I do now, that I was already started to surrender. Whatever was happening, by the time they got me processed and into the lockdown unit, it was 11 p.m. And of course, they medicated me, waking up the next morning and realizing that I was in a lockdown unit. There's a lot of people there that couldn't come out of their state of mind. I didn't know what was going on with me. I knew that I had a drinking problem. But I could see right off the bat when I woke up with these other patients that, there probably wasn't much help for them. But for some reason, I got a little bit of hope. And they were actually going to send me down to White Deer Run. I'm from Erie, PA. And they were going to send me down to White Deer Run, but my social worker, and I don't think she reminds me using her name because it's something very great. Pat Furster from the hospital, she stepped in and she says, you know what, Brian, I think there's a little bit more appropriate place for you over here in Rock Creek, Ohio. I'm like, but at the time I was like, oh, okay. I just said okay. And it did. It changed the course of my life.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool to think
It
about.
is. Yeah, for sure. Those people and that willingness to say, okay. So what was treatment like for you? I know it's 16 years ago, but share what your experience
I
was
still
like.
talk about it a lot because I go back there, especially working in here where I got sober. Is the first 2 weeks it was a mess. I was a mess still. I was just clean, and that's a matter of fact what my counselor said. Brian, the only thing that's changed is your breath, and that really hit me. It was one of the times that hit me. I was mad, upset, but it was the first time I actually listened to her, heard her. So I still had a lot of the same behaviors. Did not realize how sick I really was, mental health wise, until much later down the road. The staff really took a lot of time with me. I remember my fifth day here. I was in the psych ward with my wife's brother-in-law. He came in the next day, and I couldn't help but think my father-in-law's got to be really proud of his son-in-laws. They're both in the psych ward.
Right.
Well, the unfortunate thing was 5 days here at Glen Bay. The day he left afterwards, he ended up killing himself.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So yes, but it woke me up. Of course, I wanted to leave when I found out. I wanted to leave, and the staff here talked me out of that. But I ended up using it. What it was nice is I was able to look at that and realize that's what I almost did to my kids and my family. So I used it as motivation early on. To realize that this was important. It was life and death, and I started treating it that way.
Good.
So,
Yeah. So what were some dreams that started to come true for you in your recovery?
I think the biggest one was my relationship with my girls, my daughters. It started to mend. It started to correct itself. And they would come and visit me, and they would I would see them more here than I see them when I was in active addiction. So I started realizing that how the importance of, and I was seeing some of the damage I'd done at the same time, and realized that I wasn't doing the damage today. So I was able to mend those relationships. And there were some big decisions that I had to make early in the process, about 6 months, to either stay at my job. It was a union job. I was there for 16 years. But the truth of it was I was never going to be able to go back there and stay sober. So I ended up having to resign my position there, which was a big step and a big leap of faith, because I did that having nothing on the plate. So it was go back, work on my resumes, take some skill testing for other jobs, because I stayed over here in Ohio. And it was another big, huge leap of faith. And a year clean, they told me to apply for a counseling assistant position. I'm like, oh, okay. All right, I'll apply for it. And they hired me. So I became a counselor assistant. I went from work boots to Dickie uniforms to a shirt and tie and dress shoes, and very weird. I was a heavy equipment operator by trade.
Okay.
So it was going from the construction into the field. It was a little different. Scary.
Yeah.
But I loved being here at Glen Bay. I loved what I was doing, my interactions with everybody. I knew my life was going to be okay if I just felt safe, and comfort. It was, for the first time in a long time, I felt that. So, yeah, and I still did not know what I wanted to be. I was just going to give this a shot and see what happens.
Right. What did you learn from your addiction?
I learned how vile and what I call myself. This is something that I call myself, and what a scumbag I could be. I learned that all the time growing up that I swore I'd never do, all them yets, as we say, I did, and I didn't think I was capable of that. And then looking back, as I think anything is possible in addiction. In my addiction, anything was possible. I can see that. So it helped me not take things for granted. And just like that situation, it put things in perspective today. And I can look at that and well, listen, just because I'm in recovery doesn't mean everything's perfect. Life's going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm going to have setbacks. I'm going to have difficulties with things, and it'll be okay. So.
Yeah. What words of hope could you share with someone who is trying to get sober?
Words of hope is, just open up. Don't be afraid. Face the fear. Let somebody know what's going on with you. I think that was the most important thing for me, is to finally tell somebody how I was feeling, what was going on, the insecurity of it, the vulnerability, the sense of humiliation, to where my life went. I had to squash all that and realize that I needed help. And I know that today that's exactly what pushed me into surrendering. That pushed me into the process of recovery. I didn't know it then, but it was people early on that shared their experience with me that I realized I had hope, that I'm not alone. People in my life are what really matters to me, and it measures my success. The core measures my success and how far I'm going to go in life, and that could be how far I go in here, in like just work. It's the people that I hang around with and associate with and listen to, because I don't listen to everybody, because there's some people I don't want nothing they have.
Right.
But recovery's taught me to gravitate to, if I want something, I need to do it this way. Right. So, the right way, as I would call it. I had to learn finally how to do some things the right way. Yeah. And they're hard sometimes, but it's worth it. It's worth every bit of it.
Yeah. Well, very cool. Thank you so much for taking your time and being able to share your experience. Your story is really going to help somebody out there who is struggling, who's, doesn't have much hope, that, through reaching out, being a bit vulnerable, and taking that chance to be able to do something different, that, an entirely different life is really possible, and having that true joy is very much present in your life.
Thanks.
Thanks so much.